is John. Him from Canada. Would like to apologize for his prior behavior. Hi, John. You're on with John and Drew. How's it going?
Hello, Drew. Hello, John Skeptick. Hello, Drew. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Good to have you on, John.
Good. Okay, I'm just going to get straight to it.
Okay.
Drew, we've spoken before, and the last time we spoke, we got heated. I said something I shouldn't have, and I misbehaved. I didn't behave like a gentleman. I'd like to apologize for that.
Wow.
Okay.
I
Let's
feel
hear
like,
it.
yeah. What? I mean, do we want to bring up what was said before, and just so we can hash that out and then discuss and then move on?
Okay, I will remind you what we spoke about, but I don't want to get into the argument. But
Right.
About, trans people.
Mm.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
Okay. Well, it's good that you've apologized for it. If it got heated, I feel like there's a time and a place for conversation, but not necessarily for getting angry with each other. We're just humans at the end of the day. We just want to have conversations and find things out about each other, and move on as we can. But John, you have a lot of great things to say. I've heard you many times. So since you're here, do you have something about, let's go, supernatural belief that you want to discuss with us?
Oh, okay. Well, the only supernatural thing I can ever talk to you about, or I ever witnessed, like once I was at work. Okay. Here's the weird thing. I was at work. We were having a conversation about ghosts. And then half an hour later, I was working, and I swear to God, a plate just moved by itself. Nothing. There was nothing that could have moved it by itself. I didn't touch it. It didn't fall. It just... Okay, you know how a frisbee is thrown?
Right.
It's like the plate went off the thing. It flew like a frisbee all by itself. And I was the only one who saw it. I asked my coworker, "Do you see that?" He said, "See what?" I said, I saw it with my own eyes. And he said, maybe the ghost heard us, and that was their way of showing it. To this day, I can't explain it. Maybe it was my imagination. I do not know.
Let's. Okay. I'm going to explore this because this is right up my alley. This is the kind of thing fun. I love. So I used to work in a pet store with some people. I was 19, and in the back room, the ladies that I worked with were convinced that this place was haunted. It was also at a time that I was still a believer in supernatural stuff, so I was fully on board with it being haunted. Terrified me, but I was very on board with it. And they were talking about some supernatural things happening, bags falling off shelves, which always happened. Even when I was there, no one would be around and a bag would fall off, and we had no explanation for it. And they started fabricating these stories about the ghosts that potentially could have lived there. One day, in the back storeroom, one of the ladies walked in, and a broom was standing up in the middle of the floor, not leaning on anything. It was just standing there. And she came and got a few of us.
Like it was a person? Like a person?
Like a person was holding the broom. The broom was not leaning on anything. It was just standing there in the middle of the room. And we had we walked around the thing. We eventually moved it, and it was not attached to anything. We had no explanation for it. So... what would you, if I was to, I mean, I am telling you this story, John. I'm telling you this story now. How would you respond to that? What would you think when you hear a story like that, and then try and give some kind of explanation for it? Because that's what humans do. We hear something, we go, oh, well, that's obviously X or it's Y. I'm telling you this story now, John. How would you explain that away? Or would you explain it away?
Well, we'd have to do a thorough investigation, see if you were under the influence of any drugs or.
Okay. That's an excellent question. Go ahead, John. Continue.
We'd have to rule out anything like technological, for instance, like you say in Star Trek, any advanced form of technology or science would appear magical to Stone Age people. And plus, but even if we were to rule that out, it wouldn't prove the supernatural 100%. It would just be unexplained.
Okay, and so we can take what you've just said there and now apply it to yours, And so, John, were you under the influence of any? I don't need to know that. But you know, we can now apply that to your experience, and what do we conclude?
Well, like I said, I wasn't under the influence of any drugs or anything like that. I was completely sane and sober. I wasn't even thinking about the ghost, the conversation about the ghost. I was thinking about my work, and I saw it. Right. But then again, I'm someone who's open to these kind of things. I'm into sci-fi and stuff like that. So someone might think that that's where it comes from. But I swear, I was not thinking about that at the time.
So I'm going to ruin my story now ever so slightly, because for months we all believed that this thing had happened, and then one of the staff members admitted that they had gone into the storeroom earlier and balanced the broom in the middle of the floor.
Oh, wow.
So there was a naturalistic explanation for us, yeah. And they showed us how they did it. So it was real. They just, like, these brooms were old, and they had like bristles sticking out, so they could perfectly balance. So that, yeah, that was admitted to us. Could it have been, John, that one of your co-workers maybe knew that you had a belief and thought, well, this is a great way to get John. Maybe let's try and make a plate fly off a side. He'll think it's a ghost, and it'll be hilarious.
I don't think that's the case, because I wasn't there for very long.
Oh, okay.
When I think about it, I don't see when they would have the time to do it, because like.
Right. Likewise, we didn't know when the person would have the time to balance a broom.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of what all of this is, John. Is it so? Like for me, I'm more boring. I've not seen any ghosts or apparent ghosts like either of the two Johns have. That said, to kind of play the other side of things, like I guess I'm open to seeing a ghost. Now, I don't believe that ghosts exist. I've never seen any evidence of ghosts. I've never been convinced by any of the so-called documentaries on ghosts or things like that. I default towards an inclination not to believe that ghosts exist. I have not been convinced by any alleged evidence, including the anecdotal kind just shared. That said, I guess I'm not opposed to there being evidence. If somebody showed up or there was a documentary or something that actually did convince me, I guess I'm open to listen. Kind of like with the other call, where if somebody really truly believes something passionately or there's evidence for it, they're convinced. I want to hear it, to know it. I try and be readily available to correct whatever my perspective may be and everything. So maybe there's ghosts, but I'm kind of skeptical because so far I've made it 45 years, never having seen anything inclining me towards it. So I guess I think from either side, right? It's something I'm struck by, just as I hear your story and some of your discussion with Mr. Skeptick right here, is okay, maybe sort of like John the Skeptic's story, he didn't have all the information right away. Do any of us ever have all the information on anything, right? And so I think it's maybe the most appropriate response, default position is, such as with your story, John, not John the Skeptic, John the caller, is to, maybe the best default position is to simply say, yeah, from what I've seen, I think there might be a ghost. And yet I acknowledge that I don't have all the info. Maybe there's some explanation out there, kind of like an unidentified flying object. Well, it's I don't know the identity yet. Maybe the identity is an alien. Maybe the identity is, some flesh in the pan, whatever they are, right? So some industrialized weapon. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. I'm ranting. I'm rambling.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm good at it. It's my spiritual gift. Continue, John. I'm sorry.
Okay. I want to ask your opinion about this, and I don't want to get into an argument. I just want to know your opinion. People who claim that they died for a few seconds or a minute, they claim they gone to the other side, they saw Jesus, they come back, they give a detailed description, they could even draw the picture, and then you have people who claim that they had a similar experience and they see the the same face. For instance, in the movie Heaven is for Real, a boy in the United States who died for a brief moment, he claimed to saw Christ. He drew the picture, and coincidentally, a little girl in France drew the exact same picture right to the last detail. And keep in mind, these two people lived on opposite sides of the ocean, and they never met each other. How would you explain that?
Well, and something similar happened in my life. No NDEs, and I will say though, it is funny, not funny, funny, but it's odd how in near-death experiences, the folks who see something generally see the thing that they've already believed in. I have a friend who is an atheist. He died after a 10K run. He was very unhealthy and he ran the 10K. He died for, I think he was out for 6 minutes before they managed to resuscitate him. And being a non-believer, he didn't have any recollection of anything. So it does seem to be like, okay, yeah, this person believes in Jesus. They've now died. And now all of a sudden their experience was something to do with Jesus. The thing that I have that's similar to this picture-in-picture thing, when I was very little, I am fortunate in that I never believed in a God, but I was brought up to believe in afterlife, spirits, ghosts, people talking to me. My grandmother was a clairvoyant, which is you can see dead people. I was convinced that by my family that I had the power of clairaudience because I would hear voices, and it was the most horrific thing. But one time when I was a child, I saw, clairvoyance obviously came true for me, and I saw a man from Asia walk through my grandmother's door. Not the door was closed, so he walked through the door, and it terrified the bejeepers out of me. And I ran and told my mother and my grandmother, because those were who I lived with at the time. And my mother was massively into the whole spirit realm and all this stuff, and she went and visited someone who draws spirit guides. She believed that everybody has a spirit guide, and I'm going to draw your spirit guide. And the picture that this spirit guide artist drew that claimed was my mother's spirit guide was the exact same face of the man that I saw walk through the door that time. And no explanation as for why that happened. It could potentially have been like a trauma response, and I saw the picture after I had the experience, and then my brain went, that's who you saw, and it all tied up that way. There are unexplained things where people can draw, I don't know, if it sounded like you said they drew Jesus. Pictures of Jesus have existed. I say Jesus, but you know, there's an artist's impression of white Jesus have existed for decades, if not centuries. And so there's almost now a preconceived idea of what Jesus looks like. And so if somebody has a near-death experience and goes, oh, I experienced Jesus, this is what they look like, and somebody else did the same thing on the other side of the world, that wouldn't be spectacular to me, because there were already images of that before they had the experience.
That's what I thought.
100%.
I just wanted to know what you thought about it, but
yeah,
anyway.
Probably the same as you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, gentlemen, I didn't want to take away too much of your time. I just wanted to call to apologize, and we had a good conversation. Did we have a good conversation
Today? I loved this conversation. It was great.